Hello and welcome to another Broadway Family Karate video tutorial guide. This lesson we will be looking at our honors material for our A Day. First thing we're going to look at is going to be our pattern for this term, where our honors is going to be Won-Hyo Hyung. First thing we're going to take a look at are some of the stances that are in the pattern. And then we'll go through the pattern several times, naming both techniques and stances, and then techniques and stances together. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the stances. So our first stance is our closed ready stance A. Most of you guys have seen this before, feet together, okay? Hands are going to be about throat high. Remember, this is A position, so this is the high. Our green belt patterns, you'll see the low. This one's going to be, with our blue ones, you see the low. This is the green one, so it's going to be high. Fist, right hand, left hand is just covering it up. Closed ready stance A. Now, throughout this pattern, you will also see a few just closed ready stances. To the side, to the front, to the back. Basically, just feet together, just nice and tall. Normally, you're either chambering or doing something with your hands, but your feet will be together. That's one thing you want to remember as you come into those stances, that you're not open into a ready, but you're actually closed. Okay. The next thing we're going to look at is going to be the L stance, which you guys should be familiar with. Feet on an L. Also known as a back stance. Okay. Heels on the same line. You can use one on the floor if you need to. Both knees bent. And most of your weight on your back leg. Okay. L stance. Front stance. Front leg bent. Back leg is going to be straight. You want to make sure this is a nice wide stance, as long as long and wide. It tends to shorten up this way. So remember to really try to keep your feet nice and wide. Bent, straight. Okay? Weights right over top. My body is presented to the front. In comparison to the L stance, where my body's turned side on. Okay? Side on, my front stance, it's going to be open. Okay, the last stance we're going to look at, a rarer stance we don't see a whole lot. It's going to be the fixed stance. Now, the first time you see a fixed stance, it's going to remind you of a long L stance. But I want you to think of it more as a horse stance. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to go ahead and turn. It looks like a long L stance, but it has a lot more common with the horse stance. Okay? Both knees are bent. My feet are about shoulder width wide, and I just have one of my feet turned off to the side. You want to keep your weight over top. Okay. Both your knees are bent. Your back leg should be working really hard to hold you in this stance. Normally, when we transition into this stance, it is from an L stance. So a lot of times we'll come from here in an L to here in a fixed stance. Okay? We will practice that one. So that takes a little work with your legs to get used to that. Okay, those are the stances you're going to see in Won-Hyo. We're going to go ahead and run through the pattern now. And so we're going to go nice and slow, naming the techniques, Won-Hyo Hyung. Of course, we're going to start that closed ready stance A. Okay. Naming techniques. And again. Square block, grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike, lunge punch. Square block, grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike, lunge punch. Double fist block, side kick, double knife hand block, double knife hand block, double knife hand block, spear hand middle. Square block, grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike, lunge punch. Square block, grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike, lunge punch. Scooping inner forearm block, front snap kick, reverse punch. Scooping inner forearm block, front snap kick, reverse punch. Side kick, double fist block, double fist block. Okay, those are the names of the techniques in Won-Hyo Hyung. We're going to run through that again. We're going to look at just the stances. I'm going to do the techniques with my hands, but I'm going to name the stances that I'm in with each technique. So we're going to begin. Closed, ready stance A. That's my high one. L stance. Stay in my L stance. Fixed stance. L stance. Remain in your L stance. Fixed stance. Closed stance. Feet together. L stance. L stance. L stance. Front stance. L stance. Stay in that L stance. Fixed stance. L stance. And in your L stance. Fixed stance. Back to that closed stance. We're going to go ahead and step out into a front stance. Back to a front stance. Reverse punch. Okay? I'm not moving here. Staying in that front stance. Back to a front stance. I come feet together into a closed stance. Step back out into my L stance. Back to my L stance. Closed, ready stance A. Okay, those are the 5 stances in Won-Hyo Hyung. We're going to go ahead and run through the pattern one more time, nice and slow. I'm going to call out the technique, then I'm going to call out the stance that it's performed in. Okay? Closed, ready stance A. Square block from an L stance. Grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike from the L stance. Lunge punch from the fixed stance. Square block from the L stance. Grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike, still in that L stance. Lunge punch from the fixed stance. Double fist block, closed stance. Side kick, double knife hand block from the L stance, double knife hand block from the L stance, double knife hand block from the L stance, spear hand middle, front stance. Square block from the L stance, grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike, still in the L stance. Lunge punch from the fixed stance. Square block from the L stance. Grab, pull in, inverted knife hand strike, staying in the L stance. Lunge punch from the fixed stance. We're going to step together. We're going to be in that closed stance. And I'm going to step out with my left foot into a front stance. Let's say that scooping inner forearm block. Front snap kick, set down into a front stance, reverse punch. Scooping inner forearm block, still in that front stance. Front snap kick, Set down into the front stance, reverse punch. Side kick, back in that closed stance. Double fist block from the L stance. Double fist block from the L stance. Close ready stance A. Shoryuken A. Okay, that is our pattern for this term, Won-Hyo Hyung. Both the techniques and the stances that they're done in. Shoryuken A. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is going to be the lunge punch from the fixed stance and the reverse punch from the front stance. So the first thing, let's go ahead and take another look at the fixed stance, and then we will look at the transition. Normally when we get to a fixed stance, we're transitioning from an L stance to a fixed stance. So we'll look at both of those. So good way to think of the fixed stance is go ahead and just get into your horse stance. This is as close as can as far as the stances go. And then we're just going to take our right foot and we're going to go ahead and turn it out. So I mean our feet will be making roughly an L stance shape, but it should be a little bit longer. There should be a little bit more of a bend. It's a lot of work on this back leg. Now, as with the horse stance, we do want to make sure that we're not leaning forward. If you just kind of bend those knees a little bit more and just kind of sit down in the stance, hands tucked in, that'll keep you upright over your hips and over your feet. And the second thing, especially when we actually do that punch, is we do not want to have the punch pull us off balance. We want to remain over our hips, over our feet in good balance. So we're going to look at both of those. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and start this in a horse stance. I'm going to turn my right foot out, okay, and just sit down into that stance. And then we're going to go ahead into our horse stance. Let's turn this left leg out, okay, into the stance, staying nice and upright. Okay, now normally, like I said, we transition from an L stance into that fixed stance. So we're going to go ahead and turn to our right, and we're going to go ahead and get into a L stance. Both knees are bent. Most of the weight is over my back leg. Feet are in the L shape. And we're going to pick this front foot up, a little push off from the back, and we're pretty much just going to drop this foot to the floor. Now, not only am I going out, I'm going down. So if you think of that a little bit more than going outwards, but going down, your whole body should drop. Okay, so we're going to go and practice this a few times. Like I said, this is a tricky stance. So I'm going to start my L, and I'm just going to drop long and low into my fixed. Keeping everything upright, not leaning. Okay, one more time. Okay, we're going to switch L stance to the other side. Okay, starting a good L stance. Go ahead and drop long and low. One more time. Starting my L, drop long and low. Okay, not being pulled forward, not going front or back. Keeping my weight right over top. Okay. Rest those legs just a couple of minutes. We're going to go ahead and just review a couple basic punching hand shapes. Now this is a lunge punch. It's going to look a little different because we're not doing a step. We're doing a shift of stance. But it is a lunge punch. It's done with our front hand. So go ahead and just take your hands. Remember, we're just going to roll those down into fists. Squeeze tightly. Thumbs on the outside. Okay? Squeeze it tight. That will help. We want to strike with two big knuckles, the forefist. Very, very important. If you're striking down here, you're going to hurt something. You. Okay? Big knuckles. We want to make sure, squeeze nice and tight. Pull those knuckles into alignment so everything's nice and straight. If the wrist is up or down, it's going to roll when it strikes something. okay? You're gonna hurt your wrist. Punching something is dangerous. You need to do it correctly, especially when you start making contact with either a target or when you even start free sparring. You know, you have to make sure you've got a pretty good handshake. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and look at the lunge punch out of the fixed stance. So for our chamber, we're going to start in that L stance. Now the hand chamber for this is going to look backwards, because remember, we're going to end up right foot in front, punching with our right hand. Okay? But my punching hand is going to start chambered in at my hip. So it's going to be here, and my backhand is going to be chambered out. Okay? So if it feels backwards, then it's correct. Okay? It should feel strange to start with. So I'm in my L stance. I'm going to the right. My right hand is chambered. My left hand is chambered out. My right hand is in at my hip. I'm going to drop long and low into that fixed stance. And then I'm going to punch. This is actually a low punch. I mean, that's about solar plexus, and this is going to be a little bit lower. Start in my L stance. I am facing to the right, so my left hand is chambered out. I'm going to drop into that fixed stance, long and low. Not letting it pull me off balance, sitting down into the stance. Let's go ahead and switch to the other side. So we're going to the left in the L stance. Okay. My right hand is chambered out. My left hand is in at my hip. It's backwards. Okay. I'm going to drop long and low. Lunge punch. Back to my L stance. Get my hands. Set your hands. Make sure your hands are correct before you go. And then drop long and low. Fixed stance. Lunge punch. Okay. Practice that a little bit. We're going to go and look at this on a target. Working this on a target does a few things. It makes sure your hand-wrist position is correct. And it also helps you drop down into that stance. So I'm going to have Miss Jessica come out, hold for me. And that's going to be right at the belt. I'm going to go ahead and set into a fixed stance so I know about where I'm at, so I'm at a good distance. And then I'm going to go ahead, slide back into my L stance. Remember, I'm going right foot forward, so my right hand is going to be doing the punch, so I'm going to chamber my left hand out to start with. Drop long and low, watch your balance, we're just going to touch and push. So I'm going to drop into my fixed stance, touch and push those two big knuckles. Okay. Be careful, if I'm too far back, I have to reach and it's going to pull me off balance. Okay, so be careful with your distance on this. Okay, L stance, got my hands chambered. I'm going to shift, touch and push. One more time, touch and push. Once that feels pretty comfortable, your wrist staying nice and straight, it's not bending, we can add a little more power. We don't want to go there until everything looks good. Okay, good chamber. I'm dropping into a really good solid fixed stance. Touch, push, get a little more power. Sorry. So I'm here, a little more power, and go. It's not an easy strike. And go. Okay, we're going to go ahead and switch sides. Like I said, we're going to start with the touch and pushes. I like to go ahead, get down into my fixed stance so I can get my distance. So now this is about where I need to be. Now I'm going to go ahead, shift into my L stance. I've got my left foot in front, chambering with my right hand out. I'm going to shift into that fixed stance, touch and push with my left hand. Sure I'm striking with the proper part of my hand, and I'm not getting pulled off balance. Now, you should politely let your partner know you're going to add some power. So he is ready. Your partner is ready. Okay? Long and low. Okay. And go. One more time. And go. Good. Watch your stance. When you get done with your strike, make sure you're still over top of your knees, without being pulled forward or pulled to the side. Thank you. Tricky part of that is getting the hands chambered. Once you get the hand chamber figured out, you can work on getting into a good solid front stance and working that lunge punch. There's 4 of them in Won-Hyo, so you'll get lots of practice. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at, an old favorite, the reverse punch out of a front stance. So we're going to go and go left leg forward in a front stance. Front leg is bent, back leg is straight. Now, the difference between a reverse punch and a lunge punch is done with the front hand. Reverse punch is done with the back hand. So normally you've already done something with your front hand before you throw that reverse punch. Sometimes you'll do a lunge punch, reverse punch, or sometimes you'll do a block and a reverse punch. But a lot of times it's the second technique. So we're into a really good front stance, nice and wide. We're chambering. I've got my left leg in front, so my left hand is going to chamber out. Okay? And this hand just retracts in. This one just rolls over and strikes. Same thing. Hands nice and tight, thumbs in, squeeze, striking 2 big knuckles. Everything else is the same. This retraction will help with some power because it will naturally kind of give you a little rotation to the hips, which will add power to your reverse punch strike. So really kind of focus on pulling that into your, retracting that into your hip as you're delivering the reverse punch. All right, so let's go ahead and switch feet. So we go right foot in front, right hand, left hand into my hip, squeeze nice and tight. I'm going to retract, reverse punch. Okay, and go. And go. Good. Okay. Use that retraction hand, will help you with the power. Just like we did with the fixed stance, the lunge punch out of the fixed stance, go and get you a partner. We're going to work this a little bit on a target. Get your partner. Okay. The lunge punch out of the fixed stance, it kind of drops a little bit. So this one really should be right about solar plexus. Let's go ahead and start. Right foot forward. Let's kind of touch with that front hand. Okay, this one's just going to pull in. I'm basically just going to touch and push with that reverse punch. Okay, just touch and push. Make sure everything's staying nice and straight. Striking with those 2 big knuckles. Touch and push. And touch and push. Okay, we're going to add a little power. A couple of strikes, a little more power. Retract. Do a really nice, strong retraction. Okay, and go. Find your target on there, just like we do most of our strikes. Find you someplace right on here that you want to put that punch each time. One more time. Okay, let's go ahead and switch sides. Okay. Left foot forward. Left hand is chambered out. Remember, reverse punch. Right hand, touch and push. Make sure everything's nice and straight. If you've ever done a punch and you've rolled your wrist, normally it rolls this way, hurts, okay? Squeeze that nice and tight. Touch and push. Okay, add a little bit of power. Okay, good strong retraction. And go. And go. All right, thanks, sir. Okay, that was the lunge punch from the fixed stance and the reverse punch from the front stance. Okay, the last item we're going to look at today's lesson is going to be the front snap kick from the front stance. So let's go ahead and couple of basics. I'm going to go ahead and go right leg forward in a front stance. Front leg bent, back leg straight. I just keep my hands up here in my guard position when I'm doing my kicks. I I think it helps a little bit with balance, but normally when you're free sparring, if you train to keep your hands up, when you kick, you don't drop them. We like it when you drop your hands, but it's not a good idea because you're going to get hit in the head with something. So try to keep your hands up nice and high when you're doing your kicks. So hands up in a guard, okay? We're doing, see, we've got our right leg forward, so we're going to be kicking with our left leg. And I know this is a basic kick for you guys, honor students, but we're going to go ahead and break this down just like you were learning it new. Because if you do not get this chamber position and the retraction position correct, it's going to make multiple kicks difficult. And you know, this will help with your balance, and it'll help when you're going to kick more than once. And normally when we're free sparring, we want to kick more than once. So we're going to go ahead and front snap kick. We're going to bring that knee up into our chamber position, nice and high. We're going to kick out, bring it back to that retraction position, and then we're going to place it back behind us. Now on our foot, the part of our foot that we want to strike with is the ball of our foot right behind the toes. So that means as you're kicking, you need to get those toes pulled back. So you are striking with the bottom part of your foot. When you're making contact with a target, or if you're breaking a board, or even free sparring, you want to be really careful that you're not kicking with your toes. You'll know it quickly. Pull them back. So we are right foot in front. We're going to kick with our left. I'm going to go ahead and count us through. Okay, this will help you with making sure the technique is nice and clean. So I'm going to start here, front stance. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I'm going to come 1, kick is 2, 3 is back to my retraction, 4 is back down. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go ahead and set it back in the starting position. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop right here for just a second before you put your foot down. Okay, I may decide I want to kick more than once. Let's go ahead and switch feet. So guard is up, same thing on this side. We're going to count it 1, 2, 3, and 4. Keeping your balance. We haven't done this in a while. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. And back to my starting position. Also with the front snap kick, the good thing about the front snap kick, I can kick, bring my foot back to my starting position, or I can kick and place it down in front. Now we're going to go ahead and work this a little bit. We can do this as a floor drill. Go ahead and find you a little space. Go ahead and start with your right foot out in front. Keep it clean. Keep your technique clean. Kick, come back to your chamber, your retraction, then put it down. Kick, put it down. Kick, put it down, and put it down. So I can, with my front snap kick, if I'm sparring somebody, if I want to stay where I'm at, I can drop it back behind me. Let's say I kick and my partner takes a step back. I can use it to step forward. So I can do either a step forward or step back with that front snap kick. Okay, once we get that basics down, we're going to go ahead and look at it on a target. So go ahead and get your partner, have them shift in with you. Okay. He's going to hold this off to the side. See how much just Cohen's holding that? So he doesn't accidentally get struck with an errant kick. Now a couple of things. I'm going to flip this over so I got some words. Got the tiger claw right here. I like to find something on the target, so I try to put my foot on that each time. Okay. Put the target where you want it to be. I am right foot in front, so I'm going to be kicking with my left foot. We're going to go ahead and start with the touch and push kicks. So basically what I'm doing, pulling my toes, I'm touching with the ball of my foot, and I'm going to push it. Okay, so we're not kicking, we're just going to touch and push. Good front stance. Okay. Pull those toes, kick and push, touch and push. Okay. And one more time. Okay. Once you get that down, we'll go ahead and just do a regular kick. Make sure your partner knows. Okay, a little more power. Same thing. Don't just kick. Find your place on that target. Front snap kick. Okay. Come up, kick, back to your retraction. Okay, let's go ahead and switch sides. Same thing, left foot in front, kicking with the right, touch and push. There's good, okay? Touch and push. Almost a kick. Slow that down, touch, push. Okay, I'm going to take it nice and slow. When you touch, it's really easy to make sure that I'm not kicking with my toes, but that I am touching with the ball and pushing. Much easier to learn this when you're just touching and pushing than when you're doing a full kick. Okay? Live power. Okay? Make sure your partner knows. Find your spot on there. Kick. Kick. And kick. Okay, now the last thing we're going to look at is going to be the front snap kick with a step forward. So we're going to do this as a floor drill. So this is actually harder for your partner than it is for you because they have to actually step back each kick. So let's go ahead and shift over this way. We should have a room to about do 3 or 4 of them. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I've got my left foot in front. I'm going to be kicking with my right foot. I'm going to kick and step in front. And then he's going to go ahead and slide back. Okay, so kick. 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 We should go for one more. Kick. Okay, slide back. Of course, if you're at home, you're bored, you can do this across the front yard. You know, you can probably get 10, 20 kicks in that way. I've only got about a 3 or 4 square room to do it here. Okay, and once your partner gets, you're both, you know, in sync with the timing, you can pick it up a little bit as long as the technique is nice and clean. Kick, 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 and kick. Just like that. Very good drill. Good practice accuracy on a moving target. Works really well when you're free sparring. If you've got that person that likes to just continuously step back, you can just chase them down with that front snap kick. Okay, so the last thing we did look at was the front snap kick out of the front stance. Both returning the kick to the back position and stepping forward with the kick. Thank you.